Hey, Aaron Rabinowitz here for Red Giant, and in this video we're going to look at Universe Holomatrix, a new-ish tool for creating the look of holographic imagery, digital signage, computer screens, bad TV, and a whole lot more. Now I say that Universe Holomatrix is new-ish because while it has been built entirely from the ground up, so it's a completely new code, completely new effects, Universe Holomatrix is based on the original Holomatrix plugin available as a part of our effects suite. However, it has a new simplified, easier to use UI, it's significantly faster as it now runs entirely on the GPU, and some new effects have been added while others have been vastly improved. More than that, instead of being a script for just After Effects, Holomatrix is now a full-on plugin for After Effects, Premiere Pro, Final Cut Pro, and other host applications supported by Red Giant Universe. So let's take a look. So here I am in After Effects with some footage of a ballerina on a very science fiction-y background. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to apply Holomatrix. So I'll select my layer of the ballerina and I'll choose Effect. And you can't see it on your screen here, but it's going to be in Universe Stylize. And I'll choose Holomatrix. Now instantly we start getting a nice hologrammy kind of look. But one thing you'll notice is that it's kind of like a little bit dark on the edges, and that's because the first thing you should do when you're applying a hologram type effect is change your layer blending mode to add, just so it blends with the other layers behind it. You can also use the screen transfer mode, and obviously you can try the other ones, but I find that the add transfer mode helps the most for creating the look of holography. Okay, so let's take a look at our UI. Now, if you've used Holomatrix in the past, you'll notice that it's quite a difference, but you should know that all of the controls that you are used to using in Holomatrix are still available to you, but we've tried to simplify things here for people at the top level. So for starters, we've got a whole bunch of presets, and you can choose one of, right now, 36 presets. We can always add more in the future, but just so you can see that there's a whole bunch of stuff here to get you started. Hologram stuff, we've got old TV, displays, and you can't see screen vision, like night vision, security cameras, even like a Terminator-like look to some of the footage. But that said, we have a few other things here like more damage and more often, which we will take a look at shortly, and some other little things here as well. So let's start by picking a preset. So I'm going to go with Hologram Great Reception Blue. Now this is basically a very basic holographic effect, and it just gives you the lines and the glow and the color change to it, but not much more is happening there. It's a very simple effect, but it makes it easy to quickly apply this kind of screen or holography sort of thing as if there were no interference. We can also go in here and change it to Hologram OK Reception Color. Now we're going to get a little bit of interference at this point, and just so you know, these presets are not some special thing that you couldn't do on your own. All of the controls for these things are hidden down here in our effects area, but we've made it easier with these preset pull downs so that you can just change the settings pretty quickly. So now take a quick look at this, and you can see that we've got the look of a hologram with just a little bit of interference, and we've kept all of our original color. Another one I want to take a look at is Hologram Unstable Blue, which is one of my favorite presets, and the reason I like it so much is because it really likes to mess with the way things look. So quick preview, and you can see that we get the look of a really bad holographic signal. Now another preset that I really like, it's a holdover from the old Holomatrix, is I'm a really big Harry Potter fan and I always like the ghosts, so we've added this in so you can get the look of very similar to the way the ghosts look in Harry Potter and other scary movies you may have seen, but I particularly like this look. It's not quite gray, it's a little bit of blue mixed with gray, and it's just a little bit of a glow. It creates an otherworldly kind of thing going on there. Finally, let's look at one other preset, and that's called Hologram Dot Matrix High Res. We've also got a low res version of that. And as you can see, we've got a hologram that has more of a dot matrix look. The reason we did this was because I've seen a lot of effects in TV and film lately where holograms or projected imagery have these kind of horizontal and vertical lines. And the way that we did this was, previously in Holomatrix you only had horizontal lines for the scan lines, so we've just added in scan line settings horizontal and vertical, so you can have horizontal, vertical, or both. We'll keep it at both for now. And speaking of new features, let's look at a few other things. Now you may notice these sort of white edges that are happening around our hologram footage, and that happens with some keyed footage I've noticed, and also with certain effects turned on. So like with our lines that are going up and down, that may cause this to show a little more. So fortunately we've just created a little switch that turns this thing called Alpha Edge Fix on, and should solve any problems you see. But hey, I like to make things look worse if I can, so let's look at more damage and more often. These are two little sliders, and you can turn up more damage and this will bring up the damage that is already turned on. So things like the noise in this case and the lines are there will make them more visible, and things like more often, so that will affect things like how often the color will split, how often there will be an image ghost, or if you're doing things like low resolution or random low resolution, how often we will see random low resolution. Now, one thing I need to point out about this is that only effects that are turned on will have their damage turned up. So right now, for example, low resolution is not turned on. So if I turn this on, as you can see now we've got low resolution, and if I play with my more damage slider, I can bring the damage up or down using this more damage. One last feature that I'd like to demonstrate with this particular project is something called Blend with Original. You're probably familiar with that sort of setting from many other effects, and it literally just allows you to blend the original footage with the affected footage. So in this case, you could sort of go from being a person to being a hologram, or if you're working with bad TV footage, you can go from good TV to bad TV over time. All sorts of different things that you can do with this tool. So be aware that it's there because it can be very helpful. Now I'm going to run through one more project in After Effects. We'll do this quickly, and then we'll look at Premiere Pro and other host applications as well. So I've got this shot here of a woman using a UI, a computer UI. It's your typical kind of holographic-like effect. And just so you can see, this is a 3D composition. So we'll go to my custom view here, and we can see that there is 3D stuff going on here. Right? So you can see that. And again, if you're a previous user of Holomatrix, you know that it was a lot more complicated to work with 3D. And now you just apply it to layer and you move that layer in 3D space and the effect works fine. So let's come back to our main view, camera 1, and let's start applying Holomatrix. So I've got my screen selected. Let me just bring this up a little bit. Let's go with our main UI actually and choose Effect, Universe Stylize, and Holomatrix. And we'll do a quick preview. And one thing I see is that it's kind of animating at 10 frames per second because that's a default. I'm going to set this to 24. And do a preview again. And you can see that's much more in line with what I want to see. Okay, so that's done. Let's also add the effect to the other layers. I'm going to select Holomatrix right here from my main UI, and I'm going to copy it to the first control wheel. That's the first one she grabs right there. And I just pasted the effect down. And what I'll do is I'm just going to twirl down the effects here, and I'm just going to go into the color and brightness settings. I'm going to move this more into the reds. And the reason it might not look as red as it should is because I'm also using color correction on top of it. So if I turn this color correction layer off, you can see it looks a bit more red, and it kind of turns pinkish in the with the color correction on top of it. Also, just to note that these lines are very, very thin. You can go into our scan line settings if you want to and make them bigger, but you can also try the effect scale. And as you can see, that brings up the line sizes quite a bit. So with that done, I'm going to copy Holomatrix from this wheel, and I'm going to paste it onto my second control wheel, which is right there. There it is. I paste, Command V, get the same effect. And then what I'll do is I'll go back to my original Holomatrix effect, the main UI, and again I'll just copy Holomatrix and I'll paste it to the data, the screen, and the grower, which are other elements in the shot. Now, one thing that you may notice here, especially on my, I believe this is my data screen here, is that the lines are going the wrong way. That's because the layer is rotated and the lines are quite big. They seem big, but they're actually very small. So what I'll do is I'm going to bring the effect scale up a bunch. Let's go to 250. That should do the job. And also I'm going to set the line direction from horizontal to vertical. Now normally you could pre-comp this, but in this case I did not. So let's twirl this down and take a look here, and we'll set the scan line settings to vertical. Now I also notice that my screen isn't looking ideal here either in terms of the scale of the line, so let me bring this up to 225% or something like that, and that's definitely getting better. It's actually a very small image, and that's important to note, is that when you apply Holomatrix to a small image, it scales the effect based on the size of that image. So this is what we get. Let's go and take a look at the final animation here. Now let's take a look in Premiere Pro at using Universe Holomatrix. While you can totally create holographic imagery here, you're probably not going to create some of the more multi-layered kind of holographic imagery that we did in the last project. Not because you can't. You have all of the same settings and effects in Holomatrix in all supported host applications, but because as an editor, Premiere isn't best suited for heavy compositing and certainly not 3D. So let's look at some typical Premiere stuff. Here I've got a text animation that I created using Red Giant Text Anarchy. It's a great set of tools for text effects, and in this case I'm using the type on effect, but you can also create similar text animations in other ways using Premiere Pro and After Effects. So what I'm going to do is add an adjustment layer, which is a layer that when you apply an effect, affects every layer below it. I could pre-comp this and apply Holomatrix to it because as you can see I've got my text layer and I've got my dark gray background. And the reason I'm going with a dark gray and not black is because when Holomatrix is applied, I do want to see some of those scan lines and different things that we see all the way over here, not just on the text. So what I'll do is I'll come right here, I'll click on New Item, and you can't see this, but I'm going to choose Adjustment Layer. And we'll keep it the settings that it's at. And we've added in this adjustment layer, and I'll just drop that over our two other layers. Next, I'm going to head over to my effects area here, and I'm just going to search for Universe Stylize, and go a little further down here, Universe Stylize, and twirl that down, and you can see Holomatrix. You could also just type in Holomatrix right here, and that will bring it up as well. Anyway, I'm going to take this, I'm going to drop it onto my adjustment layer, and as you can see, we've already got something that's looking like a computer screen. And let's just do a quick playback. And as you can see, we're definitely getting something that looks like a computer screen, but I'm not really liking the effect for what I want. So the next thing to do is to come into our presets here and set it to Hologram Great Reception Green. And again, you know that you can go into the effects and change the colors manually, but that's a fast way to get started. The next thing I want to do is set the frame rate from 12 to 24, because that's the frame rate of our composition, and I want this to feel like it's fluid and not an interrupted signal. Finally, I'm going to twirl down the effects, and I'm going to turn on our static. And now let's get a preview of that. That's looking pretty good. So I like that, but I'd like to, just for bonus points, let's make this look a little older and worse. Okay, going back into my effects here, I'm going to turn on low resolution. And that's a little too low res, so let me twirl this down and set this to 50%. Looking better. I'm going to go and set my scanline settings to horizontal and vertical. I'm also going to turn my lines on, and twirling down my line settings, I'll set my lines up height to 700 and my lines down height to 500, and let's preview that. Now that is looking pretty good. All right. Okay, now let's look at one more use in Premiere Pro, and there's plenty, but I just want to look at one more, and this is just creating the look of bad TV. So I've got this footage from our film plot device directed by Seth Worley, that's Officer Carl, and let's add some Holomatrix to it. So I've got Holomatrix written up here, and as you can see it reveals Holomatrix down here. I'll just apply the effect directly to the layer. Let's look at some presets, because I love me some presets. Going to LCD. And that's display LCD. You can't see it on your screen, but that's what it's called. And if we go up to 100%, you can see that we've got little pixels there. It's very diffuse, very calm effect that you can barely see. The color is slightly split, but it's just enough that if you were trying to do like a close-up of a computer screen or something like that, this would be a very helpful effect. So let's take a look. It's playing back at half res though when it plays back in Premiere Pro. Let's set this back to 50%. So you can't really see too much, but it's, you know, a typical kind of effect. Let's look at LCD glitch 2. And again, let's play that back. And if I go to full res here, and I set this to 100%, we can get a better idea of what that effect looks like. You can see that there's some freeze frames going on and some low resolution things coming up, and that's our glitch effect. Another one I want to look at is night vision. So you go down to vision and night vision. Again, can't see that on your screen, it's at the bottom. And let me go to 50% and play that back. That's a pretty cool night vision effect that you can create with Holomatrix. Now let's look at some old TV stuff. So I'll just twirl down here and go to old TV. There's a couple ways we can make this worse, but why don't we just use a preset? I'll go to Old TV, Bad Reception 1, and we'll play back. And we get a nice, really bad reception-y look for TV. And of course, the next thing I like to do when I'm working with this stuff is to turn up more damage, or more often. In this case, I'm just going to turn up more damage, set that all the way up to 3. It's a multiplier. And if we do a preview again, we've got ourselves some bad-looking TV. And at full res, it looks even worse. Awesome. So now let's look at how to apply Holomatrix in Final Cut Pro 10. So I'm just going to scroll down to my effects area here, just get down to Universe Stylize, and I'll select that, and I'll just grab hold of Holomatrix and drop it onto the layer. And as you can see, Holomatrix has been applied to our image. You can of course change the presets as we've done before, but it's the same stuff we've been looking at throughout the tutorial. So hope that this helps you understand how Universe Holomatrix can help you in your work. Learn more about all of the other effects in Universe at redgiant.com/universe. Once again, I'm Aaron Rabinowitz for Red Giant. I'll see you soon.